Ladies and gentlemen, in every aspect of life, we face choices. Sometimes the choices are small and seemingly insignificant, like deciding what to eat for lunch or what route to take on the way to work. At other times, the choices are much more substantial, shaping the very course of our lives and determining our future. We may find ourselves standing at a crossroads, wondering which path to take, uncertain of where each will lead. When life presents us with difficult situations, we are often confronted with two fundamental choices. We can either accept the situation as it is, or we can work to change it. These two options, acceptance and change, are at the core of many of the decisions we make, and understanding when to choose one over the other is an essential skill for navigating the challenges we face. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It is not about throwing in the towel or resigning yourself to an undesirable fate. Instead, acceptance is an active and often courageous choice. It requires a deep level of self-awareness and honesty to acknowledge the reality of a situation, especially when that reality is not what we had hoped for. Acceptance means looking at the world with clear eyes, seeing things as they truly are, without the filter of wishful thinking or denial. In many cases, accepting a situation can be incredibly empowering because it allows us to let go of the struggle against what we cannot change. It frees us from the emotional and mental energy that we expend when we resist reality, enabling us to focus on what we can control our response. Consider a situation in which you find yourself dealing with an external circumstance beyond your control. Perhaps you are in a job where the company is going through financial difficulties and layoffs are inevitable. No matter how hard you work, no matter how much effort you put into your job, you realize that there is nothing you can do to change the fact that the company is downsizing. In this situation, you are faced with a choice. You can either continue to resist the situation, trying to control what is outside of your influence, or you can accept it. Accepting the situation does not mean that you like it or that you are happy about it, but it does mean that you are no longer fighting against something that you cannot change. Instead of wasting your energy on frustration or anxiety, you can channel that energy into something more productive, such as preparing for the possibility of a layoff by updating your resume, networking, and exploring other job opportunities. Acceptance in this sense is not about passivity. It is about recognizing the limitations of your control and focusing on what you can influence. When you accept a situation, you are acknowledging that certain things are out of your hands and that fighting against those things is futile. This can bring a sense of peace and clarity as it allows you to stop resisting reality and start responding to it in a way that is constructive and meaningful. Acceptance can also be a gateway to personal growth as it teaches us important lessons about patience, resilience, and the ability to let go. There are many situations in life where acceptance is the healthiest and most productive choice. For example, we cannot control the actions of other people. We cannot change the past. We cannot prevent natural disasters or illnesses from occurring. In these cases, acceptance is not only necessary, but also liberating. It allows us to move forward without being weighed down by the burden of trying to control the uncontrollable. By accepting what is, we free ourselves to focus on what can be. Acceptance is not always the answer. There are times when accepting a situation is not the right choice, and instead we must work to change it. Change requires a different kind of courage. While acceptance often involves surrendering to reality, change involves taking action to shape that reality. It requires stepping out of your comfort zone, facing uncertainty, and sometimes taking risks, but change is also where growth happens. It is where we learn new skills, overcome obstacles, and ultimately create the life we want for ourselves. When faced with a situation that you are unhappy with, the first step is to determine whether or not it is something that can be changed. Is the situation within your control? If the answer is yes, then change may be the best option. For example, if you are in a job that is unfulfilling or toxic, you may choose to change the situation by seeking a new job or even switching careers entirely. If you are in a relationship that is no longer healthy, you may choose to change the situation by setting boundaries, seeking counseling, or deciding to end the relationship. Change often requires making difficult decisions and taking bold actions, but it is through change that we are able to create a better future for ourselves. Change is not always easy. It can be uncomfortable and even frightening. The unknown is often more daunting than the discomfort of a situation we are familiar with, even if that situation is not ideal. But if we allow fear to hold us back from making necessary changes, we risk remaining stuck in circumstances that do not serve us or allow us to grow. The key to embracing change is to recognize that discomfort and uncertainty are temporary, while the benefits of taking action can be long-lasting. When we choose to change a situation, we are taking control of our lives and shaping our own destiny. It is important to remember that change does not always have to be drastic. Sometimes small changes can have a big impact. If you are feeling unfulfilled in your career, for example, you do not necessarily have to quit your job and start over from scratch. You might start by seeking out new responsibilities at work, taking a class to learn a new skill, or even starting a side project that aligns with your passions. These small changes can gradually lead to bigger opportunities and a greater sense of fulfillment without requiring a complete overhaul of your life. At times, the decision between accepting a situation and changing it is not clear-cut. There may be situations in which we need to accept certain aspects of our reality while working to change others. For example, consider someone who is dealing with a chronic illness. They may need to accept that their illness is a permanent part of their life and that certain limitations come with it. However, within that acceptance, they can still work to change how they manage their health, how they structure their daily routines, and how they approach their overall well-being. In this case, acceptance and change are not mutually exclusive. They are complementary forces that, when used together, can lead to a more balanced and fulfilling life. Another important consideration when deciding between acceptance and change is how the situation aligns with your values and long-term goals. Does accepting the situation allow you to live in a way that is consistent with what matters most to you? Or does accepting the situation require you to compromise your values or settle for less than what you truly want? If accepting the situation means compromising on your core values or goals, then change may be the better option. On the other hand, if the situation does not conflict with your values and goals, acceptance may be the path to peace. The choice between acceptance and change is deeply personal. What one person may choose to accept, another may choose to change. And what one person may feel compelled to change, another may find peace in accepting. There is no right or wrong answer. The key is to make a choice that aligns with your values, your goals, and your overall sense of well-being. It is also important to recognize that you can always change your mind. You may choose to accept a situation at one point in time and later decide that change is necessary. Or you may try to change a situation and later realize that acceptance is the better path. Life is fluid, and so are the choices we make. When faced with a challenging situation, it can be helpful to ask yourself a few key questions to determine whether acceptance or change is the right choice. First, ask yourself whether the situation is within your control. If it is something that you cannot influence or change, acceptance may be the best option. However, if it is something that you have the power to change, it may be worth exploring what actions you can take to improve the situation. Second, consider how the situation aligns with your values and long-term goals. Does accepting the situation allow you to live in a way that is consistent with what matters most to you? If not, change may be necessary. Finally, consider the emotional toll that resisting or accepting a situation is taking on you. Sometimes the stress and frustration that come with trying to change a situation that is beyond our control can be overwhelming. In these cases, acceptance can bring a sense of relief and inner peace. Conversely, staying in a situation that is no longer serving you can lead to feelings of stagnation, dissatisfaction, and even resentment. In these cases, change may be the healthier choice. The decision to accept or change a situation is a reflection of who we are and what we want out of life. It is a choice that we must make with intention and awareness, knowing that both paths offer opportunities for growth, learning, and transformation. Whether we choose to accept or to change, the most important thing is that we are making a conscious choice rather than allowing ourselves to be swept along by circumstances. This is the essence of personal freedom, the ability to choose how we respond to the world around us. It is a freedom that is available to each of us, regardless of our external circumstances. The ability to choose between acceptance and change is a key aspect of personal empowerment. It allows us to take ownership of our lives and our happiness rather than being victims of circumstance. When we choose to accept the situation, we are exercising our power too.